Let's do it.
Live from Lincoln and broadcasting across the state of Nebraska, it's the Average Joe Sports Show. This is the place for Husker sports with the biggest names, the best interviews, and all the inside scoops.
I got a front row seat with a big tub of buttered popcorn and a greasy half-live chicken leg.
Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Weekend edition is here with the Average Joe Sports Show. You've got Bill Doleman, Mark Kraynak, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt. Hope
wouldn't know it from the voice guy announcement, would you?
I know we gotta fix
I'll work on that.
We'll get that handled. But hope everyone's well. This is on me. I was in a deep sleep. I heard nothing. So we are late because of me. Kraynak and Dolman and Elijah were all.
We had a production meeting earlier today.
Yeah, 7:05. I did show this off before we went on. I'm going to show it off here, and we got Junior's graduation announcement. I mean, look at this. We got Eric Stratton. Damn glad to meet you right here. So
yeah. Wow.
The
pocket square says Senator.
Well, Uncle Nate from Gary Michaels let him use the old pocket square, and Navat let him use the red tie. and God love him, they charged him interest. It was great. But no, it's funny. He's actually up and getting cleaned up. He's going down to KU today with his girlfriend. So,
so like visit to potentially attend university there.
He's going to Nebraska.
Yeah,
but she's going to KU, and she got in, and she's brilliant. And so she's going down to Rock Chalk Jayhawk land. So.
Sounds like a good future for her.
Let's raise our hand with who saw last night's fantastic performance coming at Haymarket Park from Nebraska baseball. We'll get into your Supernovas coverage shortly, Mr. Dolman.
Well, I was watching the end of the Michigan State game, and I go, yeah, let's go check out baseball. 7-0.
Yeah,
that's how it went for me.
They were due. Made the extra point. I mean, it was great. 3 home runs. Walsh was great. Some timely double plays.
Christo had it working. He had some fire in at the bullpen.
Yeah, Christo came in and gave him 3 innings. They committed just 1 error. They had committed 6 in their last 3 ball games, which was a little tough to take and
uncharacteristic. Also,
yeah, they still left 8 on. They still struck out 12 times, but good for Nebraska baseball. I know we kind of got on them this week, and this isn't being waffling or fair weather. This is just you're kind of going, what the hell, after that first inning, especially down in Manhattan, right? So we'll dive into some Husker baseball. We'll recap Coach Holgorsen. Good to hear from Dana about this Nebraska offense. It's been a talking point and a topic this week. So we'll get our starting 5 shout-outs going. Some really good basketball last night. That was an awesome Michigan State win. All of us, Mama and Junior, we were watching it last night. They found a way against Ole Miss. What's up, Cars? Come say hi to the fellas. And then you've got Auburn that got ticked off. Junior making an appearance and then walking away. Oh. So how was your guys' night? Anything fun? Kraynak, Elijah,
looks like he dressed down a little bit for the occasion. So tell him to go to the green room and step it up.
Put your suit on.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like he's gonna put that on again. Suit up.
Can't fit in that anymore.
Come on, man.
Yeah. You know, if for the Nebraska baseball team, if it keeps raining and they the rest of the series gets canceled, they got a series win over Oregon State. I think that's going to look good for the NCAA tournament committee.
Yeah. Well, and what I like a lot about yesterday too, like that's a it's a power kind of pitching team that they're facing.
Mhm.
You know, they strike out a lot of dudes. So you just look at innings pitched for strikeouts. The strikeouts are always north of their innings pitched. And so you figure they're going to strike out a little bit. And Nebraska's got a propensity to do that too. But it's just good to see folks like, I've never understood. Tyler Stone to me looks like such a bona fide hitter. Like that is such a good swing from the left side at his size. So for him to get around on one and launch one, and then Carey to back that up. Carey's just progressively kind of getting a little bit better and better. His numbers are getting just a little better and better.
And Cale Frost really
solid win.
He seems to be settling into the more power level baseball as the season goes on as well. There's still the inconsistency of this team that is maddening. But you wonder, the question here is can this team, after what was a really, really rough month of March, like you can't sugarcoat it. It was a rough month of March for the baseball team. Can you have some good feelings off of this win, off of this weekend as a whole, that you can carry through the rest of your Big Ten slate? I mean, the schedule's backloaded. It's a lot of home games, less travel for you back half of the season. Some good feelings. Can that carry you through into a Big Ten season where right now you're up against the 8-ball, even making the Big Ten tournament, making the NCAA tournament feels like it's way off at this point? But good feelings. Can you start sacking some series victories and at least give yourself something of a resume to give yourself a chance once postseason play rolls around? We'll see. A season is not made in one game. We know that from the Vanderbilt game earlier this year. Like baseball, losses happen.
How about that though?
Wins happen to bad teams in baseball. I'm a Rockies fan. I would know. Can they just start stacking performance after performance, lose the inconsistency, keep that same approach at the plate, and can you get some more big-time pitching performances from your guys out of the bullpen this weekend? That's the question to me.
There was a lot of talk from Will after the game about approach. He talked about that over and over, mentality and approach, which tells me you got to wonder about this, you know, if today's game goes on. I didn't see the forecast for Lincoln. Is it supposed to pour all day?
Yeah, wet and rainy right now.
Up until like mid-afternoon. We'll see.
Okay. All right. But, he talked a lot about approach, which tells me they were probably like, hey, y'all sit fastball or sit breaking ball. And I didn't pay enough attention of like where they actually went yard on. But Oregon State probably noticed. Right. And so you do wonder how much they'll change their pitching approach based on Nebraska's hitting approach coming into today. And because he emphasized that he's like trusting the game plan, going with the approach, which tells you maybe they haven't been in the past, because they will do that, right? Coaches will do that of just like, hey, when you get down 0-2, we're going to go with this, right? Or, hey, we are swinging first pitch fastball every time or something, right? Like they'll go through things like that. And if you do it enough, if enough batters do it throughout the entire game, it's probably going to produce runs for you. And it sounds like they did that yesterday. Oregon State will adjust though. They're top 10, right? Top 10. But it does show you how capable the team is. Right. You don't knock off you don't. And I know every team can win in baseball to some degree, but college isn't like the major leagues either, right? Like the really good college teams pulverize the bad teams, pretty regularly. And to knock off Vanderbilt, neutral spot,
LSU they were up on.
Yeah, and how many games is Vandy going to lose this year? What, like probably 10 total. So to get one of those, pretty good. Same with Oregon State. They've lost 4 times this year. So to get one of those from them, it shows their capability. It's not a talent issue. I really don't believe that. And that's why they were preseason ranked so high. They cracked the top 25. Kendall Rogers and company aren't going to just throw that out there to be nice, right? They did it because it's like, oh, they got a lot of pieces to where they are a top 25, top 30-ish program. So who knows? Maybe there was something off just with all the travel schedules. Maybe it was the team not listening to the approach. But to me, it was a little bit more on Will, as much as we love Will, than kind of the guys, right? So if they're not doing but listen, if they're not having the right mentality, that's your job to make it happen.
Well,
right? That is your job to make it happen.
It's Will's job to find guys that are willing to step up there and have the right approach. That I can admit, but it seems to me I've seen an epidemic through the Husker lineup, and I said this yesterday as well. It's guys that have taken immature approaches in the batter's box that you'd expect, like your juniors and your seniors on this roster that you expect more from are the guys that are immature and at times selfish in the batter's box. They're not getting up there and doing a job.
Are you talking about like trying to pull the ball regardless instead of going with the pit? Like, what do you mean?
Like not understanding the count, not having a proper 2-strike approach, like swinging 3-0, which is a little thing, but like you saw it last night at one point. It's like you're up 7-3 right now. You don't need to be swinging 3-0. Take that pitch all day, and it allowed Oregon State to get back into an AB. I can't remember who exactly the hitter was. I should know that, but little things like that where you expect your guys in your team that have played a lot of baseball to be better in those moments, and they haven't quite been. That's been my take on some of the issues. It's guys that you expect more from that have played a lot of baseball, that fundamental like baseball basic things like being able to go work a count, having a proper 2-strike approach haven't quite been there at times.
Will also talked about taking big swings, which I was a little surprised by because he's a little bit more of a small ball-ish type coach. But he emphasized that also. Like, so they must have seen something. There must be something to do with Oregon State's counts and how they approach pitching that Nebraska dialed in on and was like, hey, when we get this situation, when we get that, be expecting this, take a big swing. Right.
That's an incredible advanced scout. If they were that far ahead to know the tendencies of Beaver pitching, to know that this is what to sit on and what to look for. If Nebraska's that deep into that, then good on them. But where's that been the rest of the season? I think that most people probably had a foregone conclusion that this could be an ugly weekend, and it turns into be, maybe the second brightest spot behind. I think beating Vanderbilt was huge out of the gate. Yeah. This was an incredible win. Now one win in 56 games, and you got 2 more left with them, maybe depending on what the weather does. But how they were dialed
Northwest weather.
yeah, the Beavers ought to be loving this, right?
Yeah.
But they still had flaws, like you mentioned. Too many left on base, too many, strikeouts. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that Will Walsh with McConaughey's injury becomes the hinge guy. I thought he'd be Saturday. I didn't think we'd be seeing him on Fridays. But, I think he's got a couple outings now where he's gone 6 strong innings. And if you've got the guy that you were not anticipating you're going to have to rely on, because I think he was more the Sunday guy. And now he's giving you pretty good performances for the most part. Didn't have, gaudy numbers with a couple of strikeouts, but 6 innings. So you're not having to pitch by committee the rest of the way. It's a great win. The unfortunate thing for Nebraska is that they put themselves in the position to try and scramble to get to the Big Ten tournament. And the Big Ten tournament isn't nearly as winnable as it was a year ago. Because you got the addition of the teams on the West Coast, and we saw what they did to Nebraska last week. So, can they get there? Well, a year ago, we'd be saying with this team, if they can just get to Omaha, they can win it. Well, which they did. But now with the additions, it's going to make it much more difficult to get to the NCAA tournament. By winning Big Ten is not going to – it's not a good chance anymore.
It's Bill Doleman. It's Mark Kraynak, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt, weekend edition of the Average Joe Sports Show. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Can watch the show that way. Also, Twitter, AJ Sports Radio, where you follow. Brandon Vogel with us from Counter Read, counterread.com. We're just lamenting the victory last night by Nebraska baseball. Vogues, thanks for joining us. We'll get your take on some baseball here in a little bit, but want to kind of drill down on Dana ball. It was good to hear from Holgorsen this week. We'll flip over to spring football, and Mark said something. Bill said something as well about Nebraska baseball being capable. They were capable of a nice win. They were capable of beating Vandy. They were capable of beating Oregon State on a Friday night at Haymarket. I want to apply the capability theme to Nebraska's offense here with Dana and a full year together. What do you believe the offense is capable of?
And I think the ceiling's pretty high based on what we saw towards the end of the season. The issue Nebraska had. Now, granted, it was November. It was a tough spot to come in. That Iowa game was brutally cold, but I think we saw kind of what the offense could look like. Holgorsen said he's not installing the air raid. There's not going to be wholesale changes, but Nebraska was about 5 passing attempts, I think more than its pre-Holgorsen average in those games. Even in a game, I think that Iowa game, I think they attempted over 30 pass attempts. So I think there is going to be a little bit more of that. The big thing is just the translation of yards to points, which Holgorsen echoed Bo Pelini a little bit, which I enjoyed, talking about how the yards don't matter, but yards per play do, which is a nice parting shot from Holgorsen.
Did you see on Twitter where a colleague of ours, old Caleb Henry, posting up the disastrous Satterfield? What's good with yards per play? I don't know. I mean, a year ago. I mean, it was just awful. He just wanted to just burn after reading or not ever see again. That poor guy at the podium.
That comment from Dana feel a little bit pointed where he's talking, I don't care about yards.
Absolutely. I mean, it was
back and he goes, oh, wait, I remember last year, though. I do care about yards per play.
Yeah. Brandon, did you DM Satterfield that day? Be like, hey, bro, just give me a call. I'll let you know. I'll let you know what's important about that.
I should have done that, but I was okay. It's a little bit of a little bit of shock / PTSD because I was just like, how? Anyway,
it's funny. Well, yards into points is key, and I'm interested. What's the obligation level? How obligated, though, do you feel to chuck it around, man, with this receiving core you have? How obligated do you have to? How obligated do you feel to let Dylan do his thing with his arm? I mean, you've got those pieces here.
Yeah, you absolutely do. And I mean, with the arm talent that Dylan has, assuming that, some of the just taking the right reads, a little bit more familiarity, a sophomore quarterback versus a freshman, you hope the progression you make there. I mean, I think there's a lot of sort of incentive to throw the ball. And I think Nebraska will. Like, they're going to try and run the football. I thought Holgorsen did a good job of talking about how, wherever he's been, whatever his philosophy might be, it's got to fit with kind of the overall philosophy of the team, which has always been defense first under Matt Rule. You're going to have to be able to run the football to play that way. So it's really a matter of more than, I think, attempts or yards when it comes to the passing game. It's just about how efficient can they be. And, over those 4 Holgorsen games, Dylan Raiola was over 70%. Like, you can do that over a full season. You got an offense that can kind of dictate things a little bit to a degree we haven't seen previously at Nebraska.
It seemed like Dylan didn't go deep as often under Holgorsen. I don't have the numbers to back that up, but just from memory, it feels like it was just a lot of underneath stuff, a lot of short stuff, maybe mid route, like medium range throws. Is that a hallmark of Holgorsen's offense? Maybe fewer deep shots and just, take those underneath routes, take the mesh routes, the crossing routes, the dump offs, and just kind of let your receivers and backs do their thing. Is that a hallmark of his offenses?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, it's kind of one of the principles of the air raid generally is, you create, and even just more recently spread offenses, you create a bunch of easy throws. For a guy to complete over 70%, like that's as much a reflection, like you got to be a good quarterback to get there, but it's as much a reflection of the offense, I think, and the type of throws they're being given. There's not a quarterback out there who, would complete 80% of his throws if he had, you need the offense piece of it. So I would say, and, that also might be a reflection, Mark, I think, of coming in, you need a win to get to bowl eligibility. It's a strange situation. It's like, let's just get this guy some easy throws. Let's see if we can move the ball that way. Yep. And now with a full spring, you're hoping the pieces you can add on to it is how you do get those deep shots a little bit more often.
There's another thing at play too, I think, with Holgorsen, and that's this is his first go around in the Big Ten, and understanding what Big Ten defenses are like and what the personnel is like. When you're the head coach, when you're at Texas Tech with Leach, or you're the head coach at Houston or at West Virginia, you've been in the Big 12, and you're familiar with what those defenses are, what their personnels are, who the coaching staffs are and what those tendencies are, all of that. He comes into Nebraska and is into the Big Ten in the middle of the season with a new quarterback and players he doesn't know, looking at schemes on the other side of the ball that he has not scouted. I'm sure he's familiar with some of the coaches that he's trying to match wits with, but I would imagine that when he was talking in his press conference about how he spent basically from January 2nd on looking at his laptop, again, relieved that he doesn't have to deal with NIL too much and all the other politics of college sports. Now he can just coach ball. That when he opened up his laptop, it was studying other teams that he's not had to coach against. Taking a look at a Michigan defense for the first time and really studying it, Wisconsin defenses, Ohio State, Penn State, and whoever Nebraska is going to play. Of course, scouring the world for Houston Christian defense stuff that he's never had to look at before. But my point is that, the offseason for Dana Holgorsen, I mentioned this on the show yesterday, is that Nebraska got such a head start with an accomplished coach who knows what he's doing in terms of how he wants to operate an offense, that they got November, December, January, February, leading into spring ball, letting him get acclimated to a team that's a far bigger head start than anybody else got with their coordinator hires in the offseason. So how much he looked at the other teams, I would imagine that was probably at least 25% or more of what he did, not just scouting his players and what their playbook looks like, but what does everybody else look like?
Yeah, that's a really great point. I don't think it can be overstated. Like the transition to the Big Ten is a thing, and ironically, where he was at, maybe Holgorsen is as familiar with Houston Christian as anybody. Probably knows a couple of those guys.
He's still located.
My former colleague Derek Peterson, I think it was the 10-year anniversary of Nebraska being in the Big Ten, did a great story for us that he went back and talked to Tim Beck and John Papuchis, and they talked really openly about like how difficult that transition was. Like you do everything to like think you're ready, and then you get into the league, and it's just kind of a different style of play. And when you look at it, it's got Mike Riley wasn't a Big Ten guy. Scott Frost hadn't been in the Big Ten. And I'm not saying that explains why Nebraska's had the close games, bad luck, misfortune, however you want to term it. It has, but there's just always kind of been that lost in translation piece a little bit, I think, with just how the Big Ten is. And, it's weird to be this far into it for Nebraska and still feel like that's the case. In some ways, I think Rule came in with a pretty good grasp of it, being from Penn State. But still, it's different. It's difficult. And I think the Big Ten is unique in that way.
When he said, look, this is not going to be my old air raid, he's probably looking at film of who Nebraska's playing in the league going, that's just not going to work here. So we do need to emphasize the run game a little bit more. And look at the personnel that got more snaps, more attention. in those 4 games. You know, a Janiron Bonner, or he relied on Ramir Johnson a little bit more, or Borkirker or Bo Richter or whatever. That's Texas A&M and Gus Johnson's problems now. But there were players that were getting more involved in the offense after he took over, just because he recognized at first glance this is who's going to work in the scheme that we have against who we're about to play. And now you've got an opportunity to look at everybody and do inventory, probably a little bit more on the new guys. Okay, this is what's going to fit. I am curious as to what. I'm a big believer in Emmett Johnson and have been for 2 or 3 years now.
Same.
But I'm interested as to what the running back room is going to look like after spring ball, if the door to the transfer portal is still open. I hope it's Emmett, and I hope it's whoever's still around, but they may need another power type back. Somebody who doesn't look like the ones they have in the room, but maybe somebody a little more portly, shall we say.
And Brayden, a philosophical offensive question with this topic. Obviously, the running back position is the sexy position because they're the one toting the rock. Do you think it's more important for an offensive coordinator to match their rushing attack with what their running backs do well, or with what their offensive line does well?
Probably the offensive line.
I'm not quite sure that for a couple of years now, you've had a clear rushing attack that plays to the strengths of either one. But it's kind of the question I think you have to ask Dana this offseason whenever he's developing what his offensive game plan is going to look like for the season is where are you matching up what your offense does well, specifically in the rushing attack?
Yeah, I think you have to go with the offensive line, because if you can't get things blocked, even some of the best running backs in the country are going to look pretty pedestrian at the end of the day. So finding out it's going to be a little bit tough this spring, just with the number of injuries they have there. Now, some of those guys who are out are veteran guys. You have a pretty good idea of what they can do, but can you block inside zone? Are you better at that than outside zone? Those sorts of things are pretty big. And I think it's particularly highlighted this year with what a young running back room that Nebraska has. It's kind of they're young and a little bit moldable behind, say, Emmett Johnson. So I think that's even further incentive to let's start up front and figure out what these guys can do.
The personnel packages for Dana, I'm wondering how that's going to change too, because it wasn't only the playbook last year under Satterfield where it was kind of like any play on earth is open and we might call it. There was also a lot of shuffling guys in and out. You remember how often we would all talk about what is going on with the running back rotation? Why is Emmett getting 5 snaps in a game? What is happening there? Some leaked texts maybe explained a little bit of that one last year, but I think the decisiveness, paring down the offensive playbook, which is what it sounds like Dana did, cut it down by 50% and it's such a simple but brilliant insight when he was just talking about you're only going to call X number of plays per game, so why the hell would you have 300 on your sheet going into a game, right? Pare it down a little bit. Paring down the personnel packages, letting guys get in rhythm, I think is probably another thing we can expect to see from him. It was hard for Nebraska to get continuity. And, Matt Rule even said it, kind of admitted it himself, where he's like, you know what, that might be a little bit on me, where I'm just like, hey, make sure Carter gets in there so that we can get him a couple touches, and make sure this guy gets in here so we can get him a couple touches. And it was trying to spread the love too much, as opposed to finding your best dudes with your best plays, sticking with it. And if it doesn't work out, then okay, then you maybe go to the well a little bit, right? Can we expect that as well with Dana, right? Of just overall simplification of the offense and the personnel that gets to run that offense.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Holgorsen, and it struck me when he was mentioning that he'd been with Leach and been with Gundy, because you get a similar vibe. He strikes me as the guy who has kind of the practicality of an old country doctor, the guy who'd come to your house with a black leather bag and it's just oh, what's your problem? And you just do what it takes to fix it. Now, granted, you also want to have, the best surgeons in the world somewhere if you need that. But the difference, I think Nebraska was trying to do that offensively, and for Holgorsen to come in and be we ditched half the stuff. The remaining half is what was already there. It's not my stuff necessarily. And we're going that way. We're using that terminology. It's just kind of like, what do we need to do? And when it comes to rotation, I think back to those Leach teams that had Crabtree, like they would just run 4 verts all the time. And it's like, why not? Like as soon as you show me you can stop Crabtree, then we'll stop just running 4 players on go routes every down. But that team got to double-digit wins that way.
Brandon Vogel with us here, weekend edition of the Average Joe Sports Show. Tell a buddy, like and subscribe on YouTube with the Average Joe Sports Show. Like and subscribe. counterread.com. We are deep into the show, and I have not shouted out our starting 5. Forgive me. We'll do that now. We'll get back to more Dana ball with Vogues and Doleman and Mark Kraynak and Elijah Herbel in just a moment. Kobe got in last night. Good for you, Kobe. Jeff Snitley, part of the Boulder Peace Treaty. Says big win for Husker Baseball. Definitely didn't see that coming.
At 1:15 in the morning.
Love that. Uncle Larry
I think I'm going to log in.
4:55.
Logging in from the bar to the Average Joe Sports Show, getting to the starting 5. Gotta respect.
Logging in from the bar, which is cool. Uncle Larry, good to have you. Walter, nobody gives a flying beep about the Crown tournament. Agree, Walter. Brent is here. Brent, good to have you. Justin checking in. Good stuff from Justin. Corn Raider. Wake me up when it's over. We'll do that. Arlo here. Brian Snitley, other part of the Boulder Peace Treaty. The Bats did some damage, and Christo had possibly the most impressive outing of his career. Nice work. Elijah, the other Elijah. This show is exactly what I need to listen to while giving my dog a bath. Also had to catch up on yesterday's show. Elijah Herbel, those hot dog days won't last long. Enjoy them while you can. Elijah, you care to reset? How many hot dogs did you have last night? Did you go back to back?
None. 0 hot dogs last night. I was not going to play that game. I have to umpire baseball today, weather dependent. And you can't just crush 7 hot dogs back-to-back nights and expect to be able to get out there and umpire baseball well on a Saturday.
No.
You got to take it easy. You got to take care of yourself the night after. And I took care
Not
of
without
Right.
Not without nuking the catchers, man. That's not good. You can't do that. Yeah.
We have weapons of mass destruction, first, second, 5th inning. Coach Brandon's here. Walter's noticing the ceiling fan apparently is on warp speed. Blame the wife. At least I'm not attached to it. That's good. Justin is here. Steve is in. Doug, good to have you, Doug. Appreciate you, Bruce and Spearfish. Buck 380 also in. Vincent from Napa. Appreciate you, Vincent. Got through our starting 5+.
You and that ceiling fan is like that scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark where they're having the fight on the plane, and so anybody who watches, I just thinks that you're in some type of peril.
I am.
If somebody wants to sponsor Schmidt's ceiling fan, we're all for that too. Just throw that out there.
Well, there's apparently a car dealership just a country mile north, if you get my drift. And they may or may not be busy this time of day. So the head sales guy has done business with my father-in-law for years. So they'll one of the fellas will have the show up on YouTube, apparently, and they'll be listening and watching it until somebody says, yep, I need an automobile, till they got to get to work. So they kind of gather around. They like what we do, but they're always kind of waiting for the bunny to come out of the bedroom. At what time will Mrs. Schmidt make an appearance to threaten his life? So that's kind of funny. There's just blank blinks from Elijah. He is not amused. I love it. I love it with this Dana talk. You know what it felt like a year ago? It felt like you had clearly a dude that just was trying to fight through his position at offensive coordinator pre-Dana. But you felt like instead of winning the game, well, yeah, let's win the game, but we got to keep several dudes happy on offense, right? And you just can't live life that way. Can't live life that way. And what I feel like right now is, see, you've got Vogues, you've got some bona fide dudes that not only are confident, but they're good with what they're tasked to do as an offensive coordinator and a special teams coach, presumably. You're going to be able to match some wits on the sidelines, which will be good.
Yeah, I think Nebraska will, and that's one of those things, not to pile on, but like you just go back through the numbers, like the Satterfield resume, like there were some good seasons in there, but like even those, they weren't, where you could point to and be like, oh, that's one of the 10, 15, 20 best offenses in the country. I don't know if Nebraska will get there this year, but Holgorsen has been that sort of coach. And again, like you can match wits, but also not at the expense. And I think this is the key thing for me, not at the expense of just moving the football. It's the practicality part of it, of like, this works, let's go. And, when you look at the rebuilt receiver room, like you don't want to, assume too much or, all of these guys are going to be perfect to work out. But like, I think a transfer receiver has led Nebraska in receiving like the last 5-6 seasons.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a spot where it's probably the spot in football that is the most plug and play from the transfer portal. Like guys that can catch the football, continue to catch the football. So I think it kind of goes back to how much impetus is there to throw the football. I think it's going to be there. Put it that way.
Well, and how about the trend though under in the last couple of years? A few of those transfers, their numbers ended up declining significantly from where they were before. Think about Billy Kemp. Look at his numbers at Virginia compared to Nebraska. Look at Isaiah Nair. He's a little bit of an edge case, but him at Wyoming his freshman year compared to what he did last year. Look at Jamal Banks, from Wake to what he did last year. You hope it's more Samori Toure and Trey Palmer numbers than it is what you've seen the last few times, which I think raises another thing about this team. I don't know that Nebraska's got an alpha within that receiving core. I don't know that you have a Purify, a Palmer, a Toure, but I think you have a bunch of good players. I don't know. It's difficult for me to imagine from the receiving core that you're going to have some guy that elevates and gets you, 60, 70 catches and 1,000 yards. What's your read on maybe the distribution among those receivers this year?
I think the hope is that Dane Key is that player. He was at, I think, 800 yards at Kentucky, an offense that doesn't throw the ball a ton. So like those types of numbers are within reach, like depending on how good he is, because I think this goes into too of Nebraska taking simple throws that are there and spreading the ball around a bit. If Dane Key is that good, if he's that guy, it's like, well, we're just going to keep going to him until someone proves he can be slowed down. Then you might get to those numbers, but that's probably a little bit ambitious. And when you just look at Ja'Cory Barty as a player who we really saw as the season went on, they like made a point of getting him the football. That should be again the case here in 2025.
I was just gonna not to go too lofty here, Brandon. And I'm sorry to cut you off, but
That's good.
Is it whenever you look at Nebraska's wide receiver room, like a great season and a season that I think is somewhat attainable with a 5-star quarterback, Dana Holgorsen, his style of offense? Is it Nebraska's single season receiving yards record? Is that the type of season we're talking here of like Nebraska has a wide receiver in this room that does really well within this offense? That's an attainable goal to reach because you only have 2 receivers in Husker history with over 1,000 yards receiving in a season. Neither of them reached 1,100. You have Trey Palmer at 1,043 and you have Stanley Morgan at 1,004 yards.
Yeah, I think so. We'll see how much they end up throwing the football, but yeah, I think in this offense, like that's not an unrealistic top end. I'm sure if you went back through Holgorsen's previous offenses in a different league, which again, I'm with Bill, I think is really important. I'm sure he probably had multiple 1,000 yard receivers at least a couple of times. I don't see that in Nebraska's future, but 1,000-yard receiver, sure. If some of those guys are as good as advertised.
Well, you've got two receivers coming in with their coach, so it's not as though is it Harley Gilmore that the other kid from Kentucky, and he and Dane Key are coming in with Da'Keel Shorts, who Dana Holgorsen wanted, So you would think if there are three guys on page with the offensive coordinator, it's the assistant coach and the two guys who came with him. Now, threatening Nebraska's receiving record, that used to be the easiest thing in the world because it was about 250 yards, right? But I would think, and wasn't it Dane Key that Dylan Raiola was talking about in the press conference about you talking about an alpha. Now I don't know how alpha he is. We won't really be able to know that until he gets here. And we thought that was going to be Jamal Banks last season, and to a certain extent, he wore that suit going into the season and not so much during it. But the way Dylan Raiola talked about Dane Key and his presence and his work ethic and his leadership, that maybe Nebraska not only got a great receiver, but they got a pretty good leader for that receiving room and for the that offensive side of the football. But I would think that those guys from Kentucky are probably a little bit further ahead in the textbook than everybody else, just because their coaches here.
Yeah, I would agree. That's a big component here. Also, the kid from Cal, I really.
Oh
like him.
yeah, right.
I think he's like to sort of Mark's point. Like I think you'll regularly see 6-7 receivers kind of be in the regular rotation, and Holgorsen talked a little bit about how Carter Nelson kind of bridges both rooms, but certainly if you include him.
Vogue
Isaiah Hunter, by the way, from Cal, 40 catches last year. Dane Key, 47. Key led Kentucky in catches and yards. Only 2 touchdowns, though.
Well, bad quarterback.
Fair, but I think he's a little bit more possession than he is game breaker, in my opinion, just from looking at some of the numbers. And Isaiah Hunter, on the other hand, he's a pretty unique build at receiver, real thick, Debo Samuel-esque, Janiron Bonner-esque, more of a strength guy. And he had 5 touchdowns. He was Cal's second leading receiver. So you do at least have 2 guys coming in that were at the top end of their previous programs. And then you couple that with like a Barney, who's, I don't know if there's been a tougher receiver on the Husker roster since Abdul Muhammad.
Good pull.
Yeah, but I'm serious. The guy's ridiculous, though. I mean, how many shots did Ja'Cory Barney take last year? We were like, he's not getting up. And he gets up and he keeps playing. You're just like, my God, that dude has to be just sitting in a cold tub for hours after games. So you're going to have those weapons. It's just I don't see that game breaker, though. I don't see that
Trey Palmer
deep threat. Right. I don't see that on this. But Hardly Gilmore may be that X factor. But he only had 6 catches, 6-7 catches for Kentucky. So he's still learning the game because I think he's 14 years old or something. He's super young. But he might be an X factor for this team. Yeah.
Could be. Vogues, tell folks how they can get on board, buddy, with Counter Read. Always appreciate you hopping in on the weekend edition with us, and thanks again for taking time out. Get locked in with Counter Read for sure, but tell folks what you and Aaron are up to.
Yeah, you can head to counterread.com and see what we're up to. It's a twice weekly newsletter. It's actually 4 times a week, but I always say twice weekly because 2 free, 2 for exclusive for paid subscribers. So you can sign up and check it out. No cost for that, and hopefully you like what you see. I kind of love the off season a little bit. I miss the football games, of course, but this is time to do a little bit of exploring on things like we're talking about today. So that's what I'm working on for Monday, kind of looking at the offense and how Nebraska builds. I've been doing an off season series about the equation for Nebraska to get somewhere close to 9 wins. So I'll be dipping back into that too, because it ties in with a lot of things that Holgorsen talked about last week.
I love that. Vogue's working on the equation. All right.
Yeah.
It's big. Vogue,
Yeah.
you take care, partner.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
All right. There
Good
he
night.
is. Brandon Vogel with us
We got
here
some questions.
on the Average Joe Sports Show. What'd you say, Kraynak?
We got some questions. Walter is asking, who's the fastest wide receiver on the roster?
From what
I don't
I've
have the
heard,
40
that
times in front, but I think it's either Barney or
Hunter.
Yeah. Isaiah Hunter.
Isaiah? Really?
Isaiah's up there and Hardly Gilmore's up there as well. There's the two fastest from like the
I think they're.
times.
I'm with you, Elijah. I think they're faster than Barney, which is damn scary.
So, the
and
Iron Horse is here. Gary Sharp, weekend edition. Sharpie, how are you, dude?
Good. How are you guys?
Good,
Mid
man.
Nice
box.
Nice hat, Gary.
Yeah, you know what? I'm
What's the
busy.
deal?
I'm working this morning, so we are not putting a hat on.
Oh,
Really?
what are
Yeah.
you doing?
I got to do some sports stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Top secret sports stuff.
Top
Yeah,
secret
fair.
sports stuff. Yes, I will. I will tell you guys later, like
That's
in a
all
year or
right.
two.
Yeah.
Okay.
In a year or two. I believe Gary is narrating a documentary that is being produced. Yeah, what's the most underrated stat this year? This is from Coach Brandon in the
Not really a
stream.
stat,
The
but-
most understated stat this year is our new wideouts are bigger and faster than last year's core starters.
And I think I saw the look of surprise on your face when it's Hunter is one of the fastest guys in the room. You look at his frame. I mean, 6'2", 215 pounds, and it doesn't.
It looks like a
strike-
back.
Doesn't strike you as a burner. Doesn't strike you as the type of guy that's going to be the fastest wide receiver on roster. But by all accounts, like they have the speed tracking data. Like they wear the little bra things to practice, you know. And it's been Hardly Gilmore and
We
Isaiah.
call them trackers, Elijah.
Yeah.
They do. It is a sports bra. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, along those lines, what you guys were talking about with Brandon, I'm sure there is, but none really pop into my head of a position group room that flipped so much in the offseason to the good. You know, I think Garrett McGuire probably shouldn't have been a wide receiver coach at Nebraska. That was not his strength. He also had a room where I think there were some dominant personalities that kind of took over. And especially his first year, the older guys just brushed him aside. Now, it was better last year, but in terms of just being a wide receiver and what you're supposed to do as a wide receiver, I thought it was very inconsistent. And, you know, give credit to Matt Rule and Dana Holgorsen to flip that room like they did to get the right kind of coach who is a ton of energy, is a good – the couple of people I've talked to, his on-field stuff, he's very much a technician. So running the right route, not cutting it off, how to catch the football, those kind of things are important to Shorts. But you look at the talent in that room. I mean, we've already rattled off a couple of the high-end guys. I mean, Mosey and Mills are two people that have looked good this week. So you have a depth of options in that room at wide receiver. And I can't recall another position group room lately at Nebraska that has flipped like they did that room.
With
Sharp.
a coach who's on page with the offensive head coach.
Yeah, and
And
I
let's
think
not
that's
forget-
Bill. That's a perfect point because I think one subtle thing will the position coaches and the offensive coordinator be more in line. Like if I mention something, hey, I'd like to see us try this. The OC doesn't say, okay, well, I'll get back to you. I think the dialogue is going to be a lot stronger.
More coordinated, it sounds like. Right? Hence the job title. Coordinator. What about Quinn Clark? And I'm only asking about him because, you know, there's been a few viral videos of dunks, you know, around the dorms where he's, you know, leaping over the backboard and, you know, gigging it home. And he's 6'5", 205. And there was even talk from the coaches last year about he's on the rise and we might see him. Never quite did. You know, didn't see a lot of him. He got a little bit of playing time. Body type wise, though, freak show. I mean, 6'5", 205, redshirt freshman. Son of Ken Clark, Husker legend. It's in his blood a little bit. What are we hearing about him with that prototype size?
Other than his size is impressive and his ability, I just think, you know, that wide receiver room is packed. This is a great competition this spring, excuse me. You got wide receivers. Now, you don't have as many on the defensive back, you know, as you have on the defensive backs. So I don't think it's like Survivor Island. But if you want to play, you got to show up every day. And he is a freak. He has, like, if you go back and you find any pictures of when he checked into the dorms to where he was, if you saw him on Thursday, he looks completely different. And you're right. He's got the DNA of his dad, Ken, the late Ken Clark, who played here. He's just a little bit of a freak of an athlete who, if you are, let's say, Holgorsen, who just shows up at post November 1 last year, your eyes are attracted to an athlete playing wide receiver like that. I think they've got to get him to then instead of just being an athlete, be a wide receiver who also is an athlete.
17 wide receivers on the roster right now. What do we think that roster construction will look like? You got to get down to 105. What do you keep 12 of those guys, something like that?
Well, they're not all scholarship guys, right? The 17.
No, they may not be. You got Roman Mangini is one of them. Hayes Miller,
and Mangini's got a roster spot.
I mean, there will be. I imagine guys at the end of spring. There'll be a couple of guys that maybe recently got to Nebraska that decide that, man, I don't see a path to playing time, and I want to play right away. That will probably put their name in the portal, and we'll go, huh? But then it'll make sense, and then you'll be like, okay, that's what competition looks like. I think you probably got to go. I think 12 wide receivers is probably a good number because some of those guys are going to be special teams really only guys to start their career.
How have the rules shaken out to where you can have the equivalent of a practice squad that's not part of the 105? Is that not?
Guys,
is it like 105 total players, period?
Yeah, 105 and you split the 53.
Yeah, I don't think they passed anything like that.
I've just been calling for the implementation of club football at the University of Nebraska.
And then you draft,
people
that has a payroll and a sponsorship like you do.
We got a GA over there. They used to call it JV, but now it's a club football team that just happens to have a 250-page playbook that looks like the same one that's on the other side of the campus. And when somebody gets hurt, you say, hey, somebody's been playing on the club football team. Maybe they'd be willing to come over and play for the varsity team for a couple of days, right? That's the loophole. That's the way to get it. I don't know why they haven't called me. It's the perfect solution. Club football on campus, and for the textbook, you use the one that Professor Holgorsen has been utilizing for the varsity team at Nebraska.
I would like to see him have. Now, here's the thing. I don't think, other than the number, there has been additional clarification on what the roster is supposed to look like. Just that everybody knows they got to get to 105 by the first game of the year. I'm with you, Bill, on this standpoint, because look at Nebraska. They have two offensive linemen that, if they're healthy, they're probably going to find their way at some point on the field on a regular basis in Teddy Prohaska and Turner Corcoran. But they also have an injury history. And if they're part of your 105 and they go down, then you're down to 103, and you're going to have some other season-ending injuries. I wish they would implement an injured reserve.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You need it. You need like a 10 person practice squad / ability to have an IR.
And look, and I think that's for the safety of the play. You can make that claim. It's for the safety. So instead of having 105, and look, that's a lot. The NFL does it with 53, and they've got however many people on their practice rosters. But if you want to do it under the guise of safety, and somebody gets hurt, you're not as tempted to rush them back onto the field like James Conn did in the program. You get somebody healthy, and instead of saying this guy's going to be out, 2 to 3 weeks, maybe they actually need 4 to 5, and you can bring somebody in off of a practice squad or the club football team, and you're not putting player health at risk by forcing them back on the field sooner than they should be there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think there's the other part of this 105, and I continue to say this is the best thing that happened to Matt Rule at Nebraska, because it shortens your core. You don't have any outliers and any. You can move on from guys a little bit faster. That's also on you for a poor evaluation, poor development, but also the players have to take some stock in it. It's going to force coaches and general managers and everybody to make the right decision on the number of players they have in each position group. Because if you do have injuries, you can't go and down to the practice squad and grab a guy. Right. So it's I mean, you're taking on, you're not only trying to develop guys and get them ready to play, but you're also trying to decide, okay, do we keep 4 quarterbacks? What do we do at tight end? That's a position that I know it's a lesser down, but you're like, look at Nebraska's tight end room. It's kind of like the big mystery machine outside of Lindenmeyer and Harburg trying to be a tight end, and where Carter Nelson will fit in 25, and this LSU tight end that apparently was here, got injured here, but we've never seen here. I mean, like, how many tight ends do you take? It's going to be really fascinating to see the numbers that are dispersed, because what do you do at offensive line? What do you do at defensive line? We talk about the defensive backs. There's 28 guys back there.
That's a fourth of your roster in the 105.
Yeah, but it also does another thing. I think it forces you as a position coach to make sure that everybody is ready to go. Now, because of age and experience, they're at different levels, but if you suffer injuries, man, you got nowhere to go. You don't have a huge roster. You got to make sure that every one of those 105, that when called upon, they're ready to go. And that's why I like the breakdown. Schmidt alluded to it, and Rule is the first to mention this, how you do it the NFL way, the 53 and the 53. So you got your core ready to go, but man, those backup guys who are also going to be on the field on special teams, in moments notice, boom, they put the helmet on, they're out there, and you hope you don't miss a beat.
Here's the difference between NFL and college, though, is think about like Sue, for instance, when he sat out most of I think it was the 2023 season, and the Eagles were like, you know what, we need some defensive line help. This guy's been working out. Let's just bring him in. In college, you need to be a registered student. You need to be eligible. You can't.
That's why they have
that.
classes online, Mark.
Right? but I'm saying, like, imagine November and you got 6 receivers on the shelf, right? Because of injury or something like that. You can't just find some dude that's been working out on the streets and bring him in. Because because of eligibility.
Why do you think the university brought in Bill Doleman? That's going to be his specialty.
That's right.
The 2-week pop-up course for the incoming transfer.
Bill, we got a couple guys. Yeah, Bill, we got a couple guys. I got a bright broadcasting future. That happened to run a 4.6 and are 230 pounds.
Just like their teacher.
Uh-huh.
You just keep them ready to go. If they don't show up for class, maybe we don't worry about that so much.
You got to be there. Come on.
They'll show up for Saturday, Bill. You just get them there, partner.
Yeah. Bill, if you got a problem with that, maybe you can sleep with the fishes. Maybe you can. That'd be a damn shame if something happened to you.
I like how Matt Rule's turned into a mob boss here in Mark's impression. It's great.
Wow.
Gary, with this 105, to get back to business, do you think it changes how, generally speaking, colleges handle practice? Matt Rule's emphasized physical practices. The concern being, hey, if you knock 15 dudes out for the season during fall camp, you're at 90 guys for the season now, where the teams that take it lighter are going to have a full 105. Do you think nationwide that might change how coaches handle practice? That's another big difference with the NFL and college. You have your light roster, but NFL teams aren't hitting during the week.
No,
for the most part in practice. And Matt Rule's a coach that is going to want to hit during the week. He's going to want to develop throughout the season. I guess advantage, disadvantage for Nebraska running physical practices with a 105. So on one hand, it might give you that physical edge that other teams don't want to do, but on the other hand, can knock guys out for the season.
Yeah, I agree with you, Elijah. And each coach will have to evaluate where his team is and what they do and how comfortable he is. I don't think Nebraska will change very much. I do think that you will get a lot more reps, though. Like, if you're on the 1s or the 2s, you're going to get a lot of reps. And you're also going to force your scout teams to be really good. I think it's going to be a trick. Initially we go, man, 105, that sucks. Look at all the guys that are, you can't be in the program. And I wish it was a little bit more. I wish it was like in the 120 range.
Mm-hmm.
I think the 105 is going to make across the board better football players. You get more attention and you have more reps, whether they're physical reps or mental reps or just, air on air reps. I actually, down the road, I think we'll see a benefit of the 105. But I don't think, Elijah, I don't think Rule will change much. But, we've seen this during the week. The physicality is a lot less than it used to be. It's kind of like the lines of the NFL. So I'm wondering if, like, fall camp will be a little bit more strenuous. And then once you get into the season, they get into more of a routine that they don't hit 3 days a week.
You just pray that you're asking a lot for guys to be able 18 to 22 years old who don't have this level of competition once they show up. I mean, you're going from high school. If you're in, Barney's area code, you've played a lot of good talent, but not everybody's on the same playing field, so to speak. So, can you be pro-like on Saturday when it comes to being a good open field tackling team or a good pass pro team? You've got to get your team ready with limited contact. Gary, I wanted to ask you, dude, about the running back room. I know we've talked receivers, we've talked Dana and his stamp on the offense and the complementary part, the efficiency part, but the running back room, are you concerned about what is there behind Emmett, A, and B, are you concerned about Emmett being the guy? I ask that because he's had spot duty and I think he's really talented. I think I don't really doubt the guy. I think he can be good. He just needs to be given consistent opportunity. I think Dana's going to do that. But beyond that, because you've got a lot of games and you need a 1-2, maybe 3 punch setup at running back if you want to be a presumably a 50-50 or a fourth quarter rushing team. Do you like what options Nebraska has?
I do.
Or do you know even? I mean,
no. I mean, we know that Emmett is RB1. Don't you guys think though? And we've discussed this a lot, and especially because of Emmett's talent set, where he might make more splash plays catching the ball than running the ball this year. That our definition right now at Nebraska of the bell cow running back, which we want to carry 20 to 25 times a game, is going to have to change. And we're just hoping that bell cow running back has 20 to 25 touches. Yeah. If you kind of look at how I think Holgorsen wants to use his running back, there's some unproven guys, but they have enough depth. I'd tell you, one of the bigger developments this week is when you heard that Parker is up to 190. That kid's scary. And now he's at 190 in a short amount of time. They've kind of reconfigured his body before they get into the nuts and bolts of summertime and what they want to do with his physique. I think they would like to Schmidt have 3 guys for the running back position. They have a 1, but they have 2 other guys that they rely on. And, maybe not a specialty back, not that third down back, but guys that are versatile. Mekhi Nelson, they are extremely high on. They were close to pulling the trigger on Mekhi Nelson playing last year, late in the year, and it just never came to fruition. But they do like their options. I think we look at their options and go, man, they're outside of Parker. There's no real dudes in that room, and they go, they're the perfect dudes for what we want. Okay. So I'll be curious to see how it plays out when we get to the end. But I also will be curious, guys. How big of a gap is it between RB1 and the next guy at Nebraska?
That's fair. That is absolutely fair. What's the drop off? What's the similarities? Elijah, you've nailed this from time to time when we've talked running backs. Can every back do what your number 1 can do? Yeah, that's why I had so many personnel packages over the last couple of years, because not everybody was able to pass pro or catch the football. Not everybody was able to run as stoutly between the tackles. You had to just keep shifting and mixing and matching. And it's 3rd and 2. Here's our personnel group. Run them in, instead of just keeping what you got on the field, right?
And one of the things I kind of was alluding to with Brandon with that question about, do you set up your offense to play to the strengths of your offensive line or to your running back? Nebraska ran completely different running schemes, it felt like, last year based on which running back was in the game. Where Emmett's in the game, when you're running more zone scheme, you're letting him make a cut in the backfield, hit the hole hard. And then Dowdell comes in and you're running power, you're running counter, you're running trap. Like, those are the types of plays that he was excelling at. It felt like you were asking your offensive line to do completely different things based on which running back was in the game. And you don't let them get into a rhythm that way. You don't get to lock in on those 2 or 3 running plays that you've been running since day 1 of fall camp that they've gotten really, really good at, which is what the teams that run the ball well do. Wisconsin, Iowa.
Formerly Wisconsin.
Yeah. Those teams would kill you with 3 to 4 running plays.
Iowa stretch play. Yeah.
They'd run it from different personnel. They'd run it from different formations, but it's at its heart for the offensive line, the same play. And Nebraska wasn't able to do that last year. Based on which running back was in the game, they're calling different running plays. And makes it difficult on your offensive line whenever they have to learn the blocking schemes for 14 different rushing plays.
But it made it really easy for opposing defensive coordinators. Oh, that running back's in. Okay, that's this. It was easy. You knew who was in the game. You knew Nebraska was going to do. Right?
It's Tecmo Bowl. It's Tecmo
Right.
Bowl. Yeah,
When your Johnson's in the game, there's a chance that there might be a pass to the flat. Dante Dell's in the game. There's no way in hell they're throwing him the football. You know?
How about the old Iowa stretch play, short side of the field, where they just wear your ass out with it, stretch, bootleg. Oh God, the tight end's wide open.
Look, there were amateur defensive coordinators in George Darlington's football 101 class that could look at Nebraska's personnel groupings and know exactly what was going to happen. Right? It was like back in the day with Jamal Lord on 3rd and 8. You knew that he was going to take the deep snap and try to run it for himself.
Quarterback counter, baby.
Yeah, I'll tell you, you guys are mentioning Iowa. The team that comes to mind that has continually killed Nebraska with the stretch play and then the cutback is Minnesota. I bet Minnesota in this run of Fleck having success against Nebraska maybe has run the same 8 rushing plays over like 5-6 years. You know, they stretch it and then they over pursue. And what do? The running back cuts back and that hole to his left is wide open and he's running down the field.
Chris Brown touchdown. Yeah.
Do a few things well, right? Instead of 100 things okay.
Well, that
seems to be the recipe.
I think you're talking about Dylan Raiola. I think you're talking about this whole program is do simple better.
Yeah.
Like just think about the quarterback play at Nebraska. There are if Dylan in year 2 just does simple better, pitch and catch, is okay with hitting a gap busting base hit instead of a home run. I mean, I think Nebraska can take a big step by just doing simple better. And that's just not the quarterback. I think it's the whole program. Sometimes you get caught up in these big things that, oh, my God, we got to conquer that. Well, you got to start with some of the simple things that have prevented Nebraska, where 5 of their 6 losses this past year, they had a chance to win the game, and they couldn't find a way to win the game. And you go back after you sift through it and you go, oh, that was just a little thing. It was never really a monster. Oh my God, a collapse, a catastrophe collapse. It was like a simple thing that they weren't able to do well. And so I was Holgorsen kind of alluded to that. And then Dylan backed it up, not with those kind of words, that we are working on just the simple stuff of being a quarterback, that you already have it in your toolbox. You do the simple and you'll be better. Like, I don't want to hear that Dylan is faster. I want to hear that Dylan is a smarter runner.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Don't ride too early.
So does Gertie. She wants more ability to scramble on 3rd and 5 and pick up 11. Sharpie, I want to get. I know you got stuff to do this morning, so I want to get a quick thought. Keeping with that simple is better theme. Nebraska was simply better last night against Oregon State, which I didn't think I'd be saying Saturday morning after the way they've performed, but good for them, good for Will. And, hey, I don't know what Mother Nature will do today. I know it's wet and kind of sloppy outside right now, but Nebraska baseball looked really good last night.
Doesn't it? And we're all baseball fans here. Doesn't last night, in the whole course of the way the season has gone, make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, they've fought it. They're a frustrating team. You have no idea what you're going to get, but they're back home. It's a Friday night. The weather is great. It's Haymarket Park. People are like, okay, now I'm ready to take in some baseball. Basketball is over. And Nebraska, that we expected, showed up last night. Now, the thing will be, can they do it again whenever, they play today, they play Sunday, depending on the weather. But I don't know. When Will Walsh pitches, though, guys, you have more of a like, okay, I'm not going to ride the roller coaster. It's can they find ways to score? And last night they did. But the bats showed up last night. And who knows what's going to show up today? That's the thing about this team. Is we can all go, ooh, is this the turning point? And then at 8:00 tonight, we'll go, no, it wasn't. And then they'll win on Sunday, and you'll go, okay, they won the series.
All right,
think
here we
You can't
go.
ride the roller coaster.
Here we go.
You can't ride the roller coaster.
I think that's just where we are, which we
Yeah.
shouldn't be, guys. I mean,
Yeah.
there's too many veteran guys that have gone through it before to have this slow of a start. You can tell me that they'll pick it up on the back end because they did last year. But you know what? I don't like the back end. I like the front end, especially with guys that have been here before. So we'll see what happens today. But last night felt like that's what it's supposed to be this season.
And one thing to note, Oregon State, if you do play all 3 games this weekend, still has 3 dudes that are their starting pitchers. And I think you could argue their Sunday guy is the best of all 3.
Exactly.
They don't necessarily march out their ace. I mean, they have 3 really good pitchers, so they have that luxury. I would argue both Saturday and Sunday could be better than Friday, which might mean bad things for Nebraska. But the key is what you did last night. You got to get that starter out of the game early, and you got to hope for good starting pitching performance. 6 runs. I've been saying it all year. 6 runs is the minimum this team has to put up every single game if they want to.
God, that's a lot. I'm with you, Elijah. But just think about that. You got to go every day. You wake up. You got to score 6 runs. Wow. But you know what? They looked, and I think this. And here's the thing. It's been a frustrating start to the season, and they have been all of a sudden they were great in the field. Now they can't. Manhattan was abysmal, but then they scored 8 runs in that game. But your midweek starter, who has looked great, gave up 8 runs. They weren't all earned. Then they turn around, they come home. They're back into a routine of, okay, they're playing at home. They're going to start playing more teams in the Big Ten that they've seen before, so they can get into a routine. I'm going to be in the minority here. I wouldn't be surprised if they got on a really good stretch where they were winning games. The schedule isn't as difficult as it's been, but I'll tell you, this weekend they need to take advantage of, because you're going to hear it loud and clear Tuesday when a really good Creighton team comes to Lincoln. And you know what, you guys know what the discourse is if Nebraska loses at home to Creighton.
Yeah. Which has been, out of the last 10, how many have Creighton won? Right. It seems like they've been owning that series for a while.
I think Creighton's 8-2 in the last 10, and I think both of Nebraska's wins came in Omaha. I'm pretty sure they've been winless against Creighton at home for like 5-6 years now, something like that.
That's crazy.
Well, Nebraska's paid such passing interest to midweek games, but that should not be a midweek game that deserves passing interest. And you can't blame it. Well, we're focused on on conference play on the weekends. That's that doesn't work with that series. And I don't think it should really work with when they play Omaha either. There ought to be a little extra emphasis on those in-state state tournament games. But look, Creighton's on kind of an emotional hole this year with, this being Ed Service's final season. And even if you're a Husker or a J-Sker, certainly J-Skers love him, but Ed Service is one of the best guys in baseball and beloved. And I think you should wish him well, but they're playing with a lot of emotion this season, and nothing would make them happier than to beat Nebraska in their 3 games this year. Right. And send Ed out that way.
Yeah. I think there's the part of Haymarket Park. Also Oregon State didn't take advantage of some opportunities early in the game to put up, what could have been crooked numbers. And then there was a lot of soft contact. It was a really good win last night, but it's Haymarket Park. When the weather warms up, Haymarket Park is a pretty special place, and Nebraska needs to take advantage of it. I will say this. I think it was great that Oregon State and Nebraska were playing last night.
Yeah.
All of us have, we remember the days of the Big 12 on Friday nights when ranked teams would come into Haymarket Park and Nebraska would be ranked, and what a buzz it would be. Wasn't that last night the first ranked opponent that's played at Haymarket Park since Maryland 8 years ago? Did I hear that?
Wow.
Did I hear that note correctly?
That's in the old notes, and that's too bad, but at least you got it.
Thank you, Big Ten.
And it was the last top 10 opponent since UCLA came to town, like whenever. That was the
Yet a non-conference.
Yeah. That was the Garrett Cole, Trevor Bauer UCLA team like a long time ago.
That the Garrett Cole and Trevor Bauer together.
That's Big Ten baseball right there.
In Nebraska,
right there is Big Ten baseball.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so that was cool. I mean, I'm glad that, an Oregon State is living out of a suitcase. Their schedule is on wheels as an independent. So I'm glad that this got put together. I'm glad that it sucks that the weather the next 2 days is going to be iffy. But last night is why you have Haymarket Park. It was great, and Nebraska answered it. But We'll see. Well, I think we'll know early today if last night had any impact. But I'm telling you, Will Walsh, if you told me that Mason McConaughey would be out for the year and you got to go find an ace, and I don't know that Will Walsh is a Friday ace, but Will Walsh does enough stuff that you're not going to get underwater on a Friday night. You know, he's not going to throw, he's not going to, all of a sudden lose his compass on the mound and not find the strike zone. So
yeah,
we'll see what this does. Hey, Tuesday, that L is on whoever scheduled that game in Nebraska's office, because they shouldn't have been playing, coming back from the West Coast where they're gone for 10 days. They come back, they go to school, they bust 3 hours to Manhattan to play a really good K-State team. Come on. I know it's tough to find midweek games, but that was poor scheduling and it showed early. Maybe last night is now going to show us who the real Nebraska is.
The curious case of Drew Christo continued last night too, right? It's just amazing that at this point in his career, you still don't have like a defined role for him yet, right? Tried him as a starter, tried him as a midweek, tried him as a weekend, tried him as a reliever. He's just kind of inconsistent with him, but when he's on, like he was last night, when he's on, he looks like top 10 in the country with his size and with his placement and his velocity. He looks outstanding when he's on. It's just there's such a gap between when he's on and when he's not.
Think about giving him the ball.
There's no in between with Christo.
Think about giving him the ball in that situation based on the roller coaster, where they turned to him and said, all right, Walsh has given us, a good 5-6 innings. You go take it. Nebraska just used 2 pitchers last night. You had Christo come in, Kraynak, to your point, and give you 3 good innings. Looked on point, and it's a statement. It's rolling the dice to give him that opportunity, but good on him for stepping up and performing.
How about the faith that Rob Childress has continuously had in Drew Christo? Because you're right. When that bullpen door opens, you don't know which Drew is coming. And we got good Drew last night. But Rob Childress has really never wavered on Christo. He's never like, hey, no, you stay in the bullpen. Like, they put him in a lot of high leverage situations. So it's the dynamic of Drew with his father playing football at Nebraska, and Drew was a great high school player, basketball and baseball, even football at Elkhorn High. There were all these expectations, when he came to Nebraska, and we weren't probably able to see the full scope until the end of last year or last night, where I thought that was one of his better performances as a Husker, and he's a guy that's thrown a lot of innings in Lincoln.
What about the real quick?
Painted that fastball last night. Beautiful. But Mark,
just going to say another kind of curious case is Caleb Clark, but 10 appearances this year, right? He's right up there. I'm just looking at it right now. He and Christo lead the team in appearances. So these guys that haven't been able to string together much consistency, Childress has stuck with, and Caleb's numbers are pretty good. I mean, He's 8 innings pitched, struck out 7. He's only walked 1. His ERA is at 2.25. I think Childress has maybe cracked the nut on Caleb, where he's a situational middle relief type guy. And you can get some more stuff out of him. And then
I think it's more of the academic work that he's doing in the classroom that has been the turnaround for Caleb Clark this season. And I'm not giving away trade secrets. I just I've been impressed with what he's been able to do in and out of the classroom. There's a lot more consistency and a bright future for that young man.
Well, he's got great mentors at the U. He's just good.
He's got less.
We hone those at the Coach JMC.
His teacher, as we've gotten into baseball season, has taken stuff off his plate.
It's well played. Sharpie, we'll holler tomorrow, bud. I'm just hedging the one more thing.
I have to go do a softball game, so that's what I have to do.
That's awesome.
Do we have a guest tomorrow on the show?
Yes, we have Mark Manning live. He gets done with church at 10:15, so I'm thinking 10:45 ish.
Or Kraynak.
For a half second, Elijah, you hear me? Yeah, we have Mark, and I'm like, no.
We can have both Marks if you want.
No,
Make sure Elijah sends you the link tomorrow, Kraynak.
I can take a hint. Real quick. One more thing.
One more thing.
Weekly Jack Caglianone watch on the Average Joe Sports Show.
Mhm.
And people might be like, why are we talking about this obscure prospect for the Royals? It's because he's
Not
going to be in
obscure.
Cooperstown in
Obscure?
20 years. Well, relatively to people that are just uninitiated to baseball in general. They're like, huh? But he'll be in Cooperstown in 20 years. So now let's talk about his spring numbers. He was like he hit like 520 with 3 bombs and 17 at bats against.
Is he in
Major League
Omaha? I mean, is he?
Double
He's
A.
starting at Northwest
Double A.
Arkansas.
Okay.
Yeah, starting in Arkansas. So Double A, but they only gave him 17 Did they only give him 17 at bats in spring training to like
On the
kinda
big
keep
club,
the
on the
lid
big
on it a
club,
little
they
bit?
did. He
He
went.
played a lot of backfields.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, but right on the big. That's what I'm saying. But in the in the real kind of spring training, they only gave him 17 ABs. Was that to kind of keep a lid on it? Because they're like, okay, this dude is hitting ropes, and we just need to keep him focused, keep him whatever. Because who was it? Was it Bowden this week? One of the old GMs had mentioned like he's up in Kansas City by the All-Star break. And
That would
like,
be.
don't skip Omaha.
I don't think he'll skip Omaha. But the one thing about Omaha is when it warms up here, there is a jet stream to right field at Werner Park.
It's true. Yeah. So
if he's in Omaha, it might just be for a cup of coffee.
But
right,
where
So
is he
does
going?
Sharp.
Yeah, is he going to be? Does that mean Vinny becomes a full-time DH, and Caglione comes in and plays first base, or is it vice versa?
I was thinking vice versa.
they're talking about trying to get him ready for the outfield, and that's kind of the only thing that's like that's what they want to try and add in Double A.
Well, I wonder if you can do that while he's DHing in the major league level. Say, hey, you're a work in progress in the outfield, but you're such a good hitter. We can use you as the DH while you get that part of your game figured out.
Yeah. Well, then you got you got Perez. You got a little logjam at first. That first DH out, there's too many guys for too few spots, basically, between first and DH. He would be the third that you have to figure out. But
Doleman,
anyways, I don't. Gary, you'd said he'd be here by August.
I think.
Would you
I
like
think
to
it'll be
revise
sooner
that?
than that. I think it'll be. I think they will let him go through some ups and downs if he does down in Northwest Arkansas in Double A. I mean, the Double A pitching is pretty good. So I don't think they. I think they want him to get at bats, play on a everyday basis, and then I think I'll move it up probably a month and a half. By mid-June, he should be in Omaha.
Nice.
All right.
We should do a remote from there, fellas.
Well,
Do a remote.
I think we should do the old Average Joe bus trip.
I like
go.
that.
Let's take a bus trip down to Kansas City. Doleman, call your boy Allard Baird up.
Wow. They might not pick up the phone, but that's okay.
Well,
there might not be a phone there for him to pick up.
Is Allard still with us? I hope, or not.
What are we playing? Dead or Canadian?
Wait. That's so good. That's so good.
let me throw this out. Let me throw this out. The Royals host the Detroit Tigers Friday night, the day after Nebraska plays Cincinnati.
Yes,
saw
they
that.
do.
Yeah. Yep.
Huh?
Yep.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Our friends-
Mr. Baird is still alive. He is with the Diamondbacks.
Okay.
How about we do this? How about we go and hopefully see Paul Skeens pitch either July 7th, 8th, or 9th when the Pirates are in Kansas City?
Oh, Schmitty.
You guys can.
We got something going on?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
you can share.
I can't because it's not official, but
Okay.
Congratulations.
What kind of tease is that, Chris? Come on.
no, there's just my mother is in the process, God love her, of taking Junior on a senior trip,
Oh.
and I
Okay.
will go on that senior trip as well.
Oh,
I've been
I
asked
thought
to
it was something else, like you guys were adding to your family.
Yeah,
No.
like one junior's out, another
go.
junior's
It
in.
may be, but I ain't
refills.
part of that.
Like I'm 1 for 1. How about 17 years later, I go 2 for 2.
Wow, that's right. How's your
Oh,
wife
now
and
that-
Mike? How's your
Hey.
wife and my kid? Uh-huh.
Let me ask.
Well,
All right.
we know that senior trip
That's
does
the
not
running
include
joke.
Kansas
Every
City.
time Sharpie pulls up in the driveway, it's either to go to a rock concert or a country act, or he's just here to visit. So
Hey, I once pulled up to Schmidt's house. We were going to a game. His wife came out and hopped in the car, and I'm like, "Whoa, whoa! I think I need some permission."
and then he put a 20 in his mouth, and it worked out. So
That was when nurses weren't being paid enough.
I know. Now she wants OT.
Oh my
So
God.
the long
Mark
and
is
short,
taking notes
back,
here,
back
like-
to Pittsburgh.
Like, don't invite Gary to the wedding.
I'm just uncomfortable in general right now. That's
Okay.
all.
Really?
You guys continue the conversation. I have to go prep for an 11 a.m. softball game.
Be good. Thanks, Sharpie. We'll see
Thank
you
you,
tomorrow
guys.
at
We'll see you tomorrow.
10:30.
Hey, Gary.
Average Joe's Sunday Live.
I am
Mark
also, I
Manning.
will say, I have some time. I'm also up against it. My baseball games are still on for today, so I'm going to need to hit the road here.
We'll wind it down. We'll wind it down. But Skeens would be awesome to go see. We may head to Germany. So
Ooh, okay.
All of us? Okay.
no, I wish.
All right.
We
Got to update that passport, but all right.
Yeah. No, we may head that route.
you
but-
guys don't want to go see the Rockies taking on the Royals in late April?
Plenty of good seats available.
I do love Coors Field. I love that setup. I love the right field. I saw the Padres a couple of years ago. It's awesome.
They
It
have
is
the
an
best- they have
amazing setup.
They have this Silver Bullet bar, the best bar in
I
all
know.
of baseball.
Good. And just the
$2 beers
downtown,
before first pitch. Come on.
the logo rooftops. I mean, Dolman, you know it. Kraynak, you know it.
Oh,
Elijah,
it's
you've-
beautiful.
It's incredible. I mean,
It's
it's
beautiful, and the Dodgers are like 42, and then the Dodgers are 42-2 there the last 4 years or so. So I love that place.
I saw 2 years ago, opening weekend, I saw the Rockies beat the Dodgers at Coors Field, and I damn near bought a lottery ticket.
That's one of the
Yeah,
other
geez.
2 wins right there. You know,
so.
Yeah.
Would you rather do Kaufman or Coors?
Oh, Coors. Absolutely. That
Yeah.
There's a reason, as bad as that team has been, that the fans still show up, and they're one of the better attended baseball teams in all of professional baseball. Coors
Great
is
set.
great. The like everything around Blake Street is awesome. Parking works out well. You get in and out super easy. They have that whole setup great. Everything is great there except the team.
He's so
and they're
true.
fine with that.
Team is dog water.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's all good. Well, you too can put your business here and partner with the Average Joe Sports Show. You see Bill Doleman's Twitter handle. You see Mark Kraynak giving a shout out to the Richard Van Polgeest era of the old country buffet.
Bill, you gotta put in a word with your folks down at Fairbury for some hot dogs. I'll work for hot dogs and beer.
Yes.
No, well, bacon bits,
Anything.
bacon
That's
bit
good.
capital of the world, Fairbury, Nebraska.
Mm.
Good work.
Mhm.
Kraynak, you got some travel ball going today?
That starts in earnest next week.
Ooh.
Yeah, next week, April 1st, I believe, is the first game, something like that. And then
You
tournament next
rocking
weekend.
the team
Tournament
gear?
next week.
Are you gonna be rocking the team gear again?
Well, I retired as a coach.
Ah,
Yeah, I retired as a coach. Just gonna watch. Forced out, contractual obligation. It was a mess.
were you gonna now be the dad with the Yeti drink yourself in left field, muttering to yourself as other children botch your kid's no hitter? Because that's happened
no
to some of
comment.
us before.
No. Be the dad who verbally abuses the 17-year-old umpire behind home plate.
That's what I'm talking
Speaking
about.
from-
Depending on the umpire, that's just part of sport.
Hey,
Build character.
being yelled at by grown men as a 17-year-old whenever you're just there to make a couple bucks, it makes you a stronger man.
Totally. That's all it is.
You're doing
That's
it for
all
them
it
in the
is.
long run.
Exactly.
Kraynak, be
Character
good.
building.
Have a good rest of your Saturday. We'll shoot you a link tomorrow.
Yeah, I bet you won't. Okay, Godspeed. Godspeed.
Right to Fairbury, Bill Doleman. and Mr. Umpire himself, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt. Big thanks to Gary Sharp, Brandon Vogel. Average Joe Sports Show. Like and subscribe. Tell a friend. Keep those subscription numbers trending upward. Appreciate you doing that on the YouTube channel and on Twitter, AJ Sports Radio, 7 days a week for you. Appreciate all of you for checking us out. Live tomorrow, 10:30, Sunday Live. Mark Manning with us on the Average Joe Sports Show. Guys, take care. Thanks again.